Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Martine, and if you are new here, I do videos on Vedic astrology mainly, but also with some tropical insights, and I focus on both relationship and natal astrology. And if you like this video and you would like to see more content from me, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to my channel. Also consider clicking the notifications bell if you want to see when I will post a new video. Also, if you are interested in a private reading, I do readings in astrology on a variety of topics ranging from relationship readings to career to transits for 2-3 years, or solar return charts or predictions for 1 year, etc. You are free to email me at the email address that I will leave in the video description, and I can send you a pricing list and reading options and any other details that you might require. Also, I want to mention that I have started membership options on this channel, and the short of it, just to give you the short perks that you will get if you choose to join the membership section, you will get 1 extra video per month for each membership stage or tier. So for the first tier, you will get 1 extra video per month. For the second tier, you will get 2 extra videos per month, so you will have access to level 1 and level 2 videos. And for level 3 or third tier, you will get 3 extra videos per month. The level 1 and level 3 videos are going to be on a variety of topics, so basically anything related to astrology, but it will be content that is not shown on my regular usual videos, right? So this is members only exclusive content, and it can range from, tips and tricks on how to read a horoscope to, I haven't done this yet, but I plan on doing maybe members only astrological synastry for famous couples, for instance, or the analysis of famous people's horoscopes, but then I can also get into divisional charts, etc., etc. So all kinds of things. The level 1 or second tier of membership options is especially related to synastry astrology topics, meaning relationship-oriented astrology. So this could be things like how to discover which kind of partner archetype is right for you according to your horoscope, or it could be, again, different characteristics, whether you're going to have a good marriage according to your horoscope or a less than stellar marriage. But you can find more concrete examples in the lists that you will find in the video description, because I have added the playlists where you can already see all the videos that I have posted in each members section. So yeah, you can see what videos you will have access to from the ones that I have already done. But I will continue to post, like I said, 1 extra video per month for each level of membership. And in addition to that, in the members only section, you will have access to members only polls, and you will also have priority when it comes to getting your comments replied to on my channel. And you will also have stickers that basically show up next to your username that show that you are a member, and a couple of exclusive emojis. All right, so that's pretty much all the perks that you can have as a member on my channel. If you're curious, you can check the video description for more details as well, or you can click the join button under any of my videos to also see the prices, because the prices will be shown in your local currency. All right, in addition to the members only section, I also have a tarot channel, and I post there semi-regularly, and I will be linking the tarot channel in the video description as well as in the pinned comment. It's called Martine's Tarot. So if you are curious about tarot, if you're into it, maybe check out my channel, maybe subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much for listening to this intro. And now I'm going to get straight into today's topic. Hello and welcome to my channel. So this is going to be the predictions for 2025 series. I know that I should have started a while ago, and for a bit I was kind of hovering back and forth between should I still do this series, Should I not do it? Those of you who have been watching my channel for a few years, you probably remember that I have done these predictions for, the year in question, like yearly predictions, a way back. I think I started with 2021, maybe. And I don't remember exactly if I did them until 2023 but I stopped, definitely didn't do them for 2024 because I did say at that time also I was running late and I didn't really have the time or energy to focus on them, and they are quite time consuming. But this time I said, you know what, F it. I feel like it's time to do the prediction series, and I did do a poll in my community page some weeks ago. I think it was more than a month ago, to be fair, and I asked how many of you would like to see your predictions for 2025, and pretty much an overwhelming majority said that they would be interested in seeing it. So I figured, hey, I'm not that late because 2025 still has at least another 11 months to go, so I figured better late than never. So here it is. I'm going to start with the predictions. As an introduction, I do want to say, again, mostly for those of you who have watched these prediction videos in previous years, you probably remember that generally I like to divide the year into subsections. This year was really complicated to do, so I'm not going to be able to do a chart for each subsection, because if I had to do that based on the planets that I normally look at for general predictions, which are Saturn, Rahu, Ketu, and Jupiter, I would have had to divide the year into like 5 different charts and, compute 5 different charts and arrange them and all that. So I chose to divide the year in just 3 different charts, and then 2 of those 3 charts have subdivisions. But you're going to see what I'm talking about in a more visual way when I get to each subdivision. You will see a chart with the general transits and more details on them. I do want to start talking about, I want to mention, okay, I'm not going to hold a long speech, but I want to mention again, just as in previous years, I have decided to focus on, like I said, Saturn and Rahu, Ketu, and then Jupiter, because these are the more slow-moving planets, so they spend a longer time in one sign. So obviously, it doesn't mean that these are the only transits you're going to be going through in 2025, because all the planets are transiting, right? As you probably know, the sun is going to be spending about 30 days in one sign. That's why everyone knows that they're born in Aries or Gemini or whatever, or, what all of the people who know their zodiac signs know, which is that the sun changes every month, like every roughly 30 days or so. And in addition to the sun, of course, there's the other planets. So each of them are going to be transiting through a sign. But because these are general readings, and of course it would be impossible to look at everything, because even with these readings, you're going to see, I think they're pretty detailed. I'm going to go pretty much in detail with a lot of things. But it would have been even more impossible to take into account all the transits. And then, of course, speaking of the subject of predictions, you also have to look at the dashas and the mahadashas and the antardashas and all the different types of dashas that you're going through, which are basically periods of your life that are ruled by a particular planet or a point like Rahu Ketu based on your time of birth, right? So every person is going through their independent individual dasha or sub-dashas, right? And like I said, there are also multiple types of dashas, but I'm not going to get into that. Those of you who come from Vedic astrology, and again, those of you who have been watching my videos for a long time, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. The rest of you, I do recommend that you also do a little bit of research, and you can also find some videos on my channel where I do briefly mention dashas and antardashas, although I don't think I've ever done a video that where I specifically focused on how to read dashas and antardashas. I don't know, maybe I should look into that. If you're interested, comment in the comment section. But this was the introduction. Another part of the introduction, actually, that I want to mention before I get into it is that you're going to see this on the charts that I have drawn, basically. that I have marked the aspects of the main planets, but I just want to remind you, just in case you have forgotten. Again, those of you who have watched my channel for a long time, you probably know this already, but as a recap, if you're looking at Saturn, according to Vedic astrology, Saturn has so-called special aspects. In fact, multiple planets in Vedic astrology have special aspects or one-sided aspects. So Saturn aspects the 3rd, the 7th, and the 10th houses from where it sits. Rahu, Ketu, and Jupiter aspect the 5th, aspect the 7th. Well, the 7th is not relevant because they're always in opposition to one another. So Rahu and Ketu are always opposite. So it's not really relevant to look at the opposition because that's where the other one is placed. But Rahu and Ketu are aspecting the 5th, the 1st, the 5th, and the 9th placements from where they're sitting. Also, of course, I didn't mention this, but of course they're aspecting and they're influencing the houses that they're actually sitting on, not just the aspects. The houses they're sitting on are the most powerfully impacted, but they also cast single-sided aspects. So yes, Rahu and Ketu are always in opposition, so that means if you have Rahu in the 1st house, Ketu will be transiting in the 7th house, right? Because they're always opposite one another. That's why on the charts that you're going to see, I have not even marked Ketu on the horoscope because it's understood that, you know, Ketu is in opposition to Rahu. And I might mention Ketu in the readings a little bit, but mostly I'm going to be focusing on Rahu. Another mention that I think is quite important is the fact that I have written down on the charts that I have drawn, I have written down the time intervals when these transits are going to be active. However, these time intervals, they are general. So bear in mind that the dates of the transits can vary by a few days depending on your location. So in order to know exactly when, let's say, Saturn is going to hit your 11th house, if you have Ascendant in Taurus, you have to actually compute your chart and do a transits calculation based on your actual physical location to know exactly the day and the minute when, you know, it's going to switch from Aquarius to Pisces, just to give you an example. But the dates that I have chosen are, you know, pretty accurate. Give or take, you know, 1 to 3 days, I would say tops, right? This is another mention. So, aside from this, yeah, I'm going to get straight into it. Oh, there's one more thing that I wanted to mention, which is that, again, you may remember this from previous years if you have been watching my channel for a long time, that I like to do my predictions in a random order. So what I do is, right now I actually have Astro Dice. Last time I used to just pick, you know, notes from like a little urn that I created myself. I would, you know, basically do like a raffle thing where I would pick each sign that I was going to do next in the series. But now I use Astro Dice, and I like to mix it up a little bit just because, you know, I don't feel like it's fair that Aquarius and Pisces are always last and Aries is always first, you know? So, I don't know. That's one aspect. And another aspect is, I don't know, it's just more fun this way for me to just do them randomly in a random order. And I pick the next sign, you know, by rolling a dice. So, just wanted to mention that in case maybe some of you are wondering why they're all scrambled. All right, that's pretty much what I wanted to mention, and this is the introductory part. There is going to be the same introduction for each of these videos, so if you listen to it once, yeah, you can, you know, you should just listen to it once. Oh, yeah, there's one more thing. There's one more thing that I want to mention, and again, I have mentioned this in previous years. You can apply these readings for your ascendant sign or your moon sign. And I'm talking about the ascendant sign and moon sign of the D1 chart, the D1 natal chart, not any of the divisional charts. Okay, I cannot vouch for divisional charts. You can also try to look for, I don't know, maybe look into it, tell me if you found some kind of weird coincidences with divisional charts, but I would not look into it because divisional charts are something else, all right, a different type of energy. But with respect to, the moon and the ascendant, you can definitely look at these predictions based on your moon and your ascendant sign, and there will be accuracy connected to it. With the moon sign, it's more to do with your internal landscape and your emotions and what makes you happy on a psychological plane. Let's say, what happens on your inner landscape more, not so much like actual physical things that are happening in your surroundings, right? Whereas the ascendant is a lot more about actual life events. So something to bear in mind. All right, that's pretty much it, and I'm going to get straight into the interpretation right now. So hello, welcome to predictions for 2025 for the sign of Aquarius. This can apply to the moon sign and the ascendant sign, as I have mentioned in the previous part as well, in the introductory part of the series, I mean. I will start by the usual apology I have also issued when I did the Pisces reading, but I really have not had any time to focus on finishing the series. And I've also decided that I'm gonna go on with the predictions for the full year, even though the first part of the year is already technically in the past. It will help you either way to understand the full picture, and I will be referencing the first part of the transits as well, or the chart 1 phase as I will call it in the video. And since the first part of the year is already over, of course, it would help a lot if you listen to it and mention to which extent it resonated or didn't resonate. Okay, that being said, I'm going to get straight into it. So, the chart 1 phase, this is from January 1st to March 26th. This is when Saturn is in Aquarius, Rahu is in Pisces, and therefore Ketu is in Virgo because Ketu is opposite Rahu. Jupiter will be in Taurus, and one important thing to mention is Saturn is going through the first house for you, Aquarius. Another important thing to mention is that this is a continuation of the previous months. Of course, this is carried through 2024 as well. So yes, Saturn going through the first house. This is a time of, I was going to say time of reckoning, but that sounds super dramatic. Saturn basically wants everything to be thorough, wants to shake things down and everything that is not gonna basically be up to its standards is going to be torn away one way or another. In other words, basically Saturn transiting through the first house shows that this is a time when you are forced to really look at your life, look at the direction you are on, and decide whether you want to change something about that path, whether you are truly on a path that is authentic to you, that feels right to you. And for those of you who maybe have been stuck in jobs that you didn't like, life paths for whatever reason, on whichever level that just didn't feel right to you 100%, or like your heart was pulling in a different direction, but you stayed put for, external reasons or out of fear. This time, when Saturn is transiting through the first house, this is going to be a tough time when things will seem to just come apart. But it will mostly happen to your benefit, even though it tends to be a pretty challenging period, right? For those of you who are on top of that, also going through the Saturn return, meaning you also have Saturn in Aquarius in your natal horoscope, this is a particularly transformational and, I don't want to say difficult, I'm trying to avoid that word, but a challenging period for sure. Something that is going to build the basis, the foundation of your future self during this time. To some extent, again, it's true for everyone with Ascendant in Aquarius, particularly Ascendant, not so much the moon sign here. But like I said, it's especially true for those who are also going through the Saturn return. So on top of that, the first house is the house of the physical body. Saturn is a planet that tends to actually well, like I kind of implied, it brings challenges, brings frustrations, and in some ways actually depletes the energy and the areas that it goes through. So Saturn going through the first house can also bring about health issues, especially since the Lord of the Ascendant is Saturn as well. So Saturn co-rules Aquarius, right? And on top of that, Saturn also rules Capricorn, right? So then you have the Lord of the 12th going into the first house. Not a great placement, because the 12th house is a difficult house. It's a Dusthana. It's connected to loss in particular. So the bottom line is, this is a time when you might experience more health problems than usual, especially if you have been neglectful in taking care of yourself or getting things checked in time. Now, obviously, this is going to vary a lot based on individual horoscopes and what else is going on there. You might be actually able to see, which areas are more affected, etc. But generally, Saturn is going to bring out everything that was neglected for a long time, like things that you were able to sweep under the rug and kind of wing it with, now are going to be brought to the forefront, and you're going to have to face them in a very serious way, right? Whether it's connected to your health, whether it's, like I said, connected to your sense of identity, with your overall career trajectory. Saturn will also bring about conflicts in terms of confidence, or like themes of confidence, right? Self-confidence, and will kind of like put you face to face with your insecurities, basically. For those of you who have moon in Aquarius, having Saturn with the moon tends to not be a happy time, because the moon, and first of all, the moon and Saturn are natural enemies, because the moon rules Cancer, Saturn rules Capricorn, the opposition. So, and they're also dichotomous in terms of everything that they stand for. The moon is very vulnerable, very needy, very soft. Saturn is very cold and personal, career-oriented, no feelings, basically. And so this conjunction, is particularly emotionally taxing. It can be a time of having a lot of negativity, a lot of pessimism. You are more naturally going to be caught up in like negative moods, negative thought patterns. It might make you prone towards depression, but again, a lot depends on what else is going on. This is not to be taken fatalistically. The reason I say all of this is so that you know and take action, basically. And aside from that, Saturn from the first house is going to be aspecting the third house. Now, this is a really good placement. Saturn aspecting the third house means that a lot of ambition is going to come through. So it's a situation where Saturn will make you face challenging situations, but will also give you the necessary tools to deal with them. Because Saturn aspecting the third house basically shows that you will have endurance, you will have tenacity, you will have patience, right? You'll find it easier than usual to focus on your goals. Third house has to deal with communication, has to deal with younger siblings, neighbors, short-term or short-distance travel, music in any forms, but basically any form of communication is connected to the third house. Also, on a physical, anatomical level, it rules the hands, the arms, the shoulders, to some extent the lungs as well, the respiratory system, and anything to do with communication, like I said, in any form. So these themes are going to be particularly focused. You might really be driven to put effort into themes connected to the third house, like all of the things I mentioned previously, right? Now, because again, Saturn is not a great influence, the greatest of the greatest influences, you could also see potential health problems connected to these areas, right? Respiratory system, the arms, the hands, the shoulders. So watch out for that. And especially don't neglect anything, because Saturn tends to show things that develop over time. So either when it comes to medical afflictions, it either will show a situation where like a person neglect something over a long period of time, and then suddenly when the Saturn transit hits, that's when something bad will happen, like to the point where they can no longer ignore it. I don't know, you've had a toothache and you kept ignoring it because it went on and off. Like suddenly when the Saturn transit hits, you're going to find yourself in constant pain and having to have a root canal, just to give you an example, right? So that's what I'm talking about. Anything you have neglected is going to come to the forefront. It's going to hit the fan in a way. When the Saturn transit hits, it's either that scenario, or while the transit is ongoing, things will start to boil under the surface, and you have to be really careful because you're not going to get away with things the way that you were able to kind of sweep things under the rug in the past. Now, the third house also deals with relationship with the siblings, especially younger sibling, or sibling-like relationships, to some extent cousins as well. So if, for instance, you've had some kind of tensions in the relationship with your sibling, this could be the time when it blows up, or you stop talking or something like that, right? Just to give you an example. And also, because it's about short distance, short-term travel, it's also errands, right? So like driving around in your hometown, that's the third house. And Saturn hitting it will show potential frustrations happening a lot more connected to these areas, right? So I don't know, you want to take a weekend getaway and your flight gets delayed, for instance, or you're going to be stuck in traffic a lot more, So yeah, that could happen. Then Saturn aspects the 7th house, which is potentially good, potentially bad in some ways, depending on how you look at it. Now, for those of you who are single, Saturn looking at the 7th house is generally a good time to find a long-term potential partner. However, a lot depends on individual horoscopes, and in your case, because your Saturn naturally also rules the 12th house, this could also show a time of potentially having some kind of disappointment in terms of long-term partnerships, whether it's romantic or whether it's a business partnership, right? Because the 12th house is the house of loss. And again, I don't want to necessarily say that, oh my God, this means that the relationship is going to break up, but it is a possibility. I'm looking at all the possibilities here. And again, these are general transits. Since both the 1st and the 7th are impacted by Saturn, this can also simply show that your individual transformation, your growth, your inner, landscape changing, you questioning your life path and all that could result in a relationship ending because you simply make that decision, or simply because, you become a different person. You might start to realize that you're not as compatible with the partner you've had up until that point. But this is especially true for people who have just not been in a genuine environment, like an environment that truly supported their life path and trajectory, because ultimately the Ascendant is really the life path, together with a lot of other placements that are more, let's say, spiritual, metaphysical, but the Ascendant is the basic life path trajectory, right? So when Saturn, like I said, when Saturn's going through the 1st, you're going to question everything because Saturn wants you to get back on track with where you're supposed to be going. But at the same time, in order to test you, it will also bring a lot of frustrations, obstacles, fears, insecurities, etc., so on and so forth. So yeah, that could happen. And then Saturn aspecting the 10th house, by 10th aspect, this also shows a lot of effort is going to be going into the career. This is a positive aspect generally. It's not a very strong aspect, but it is a pretty positive one in the sense that it shows that your efforts are going to be rewarded. So the more you put in, the better the results you're going to get. And that is especially true for you, especially since we also have Jupiter looking at the 10th house as well. So aside from this, Rahu is in Pisces. It's aspecting, so it's sitting in Pisces in the 2nd house, aspecting the 6th and the 10th houses as well. So Rahu is a separating planet in many ways. I'm sorry if it sounds particularly negative or something, but again, I'm looking at everything that could happen during this time. So, 2nd house is the house of the family of origin. So what could happen is you might find yourself distancing yourself from your family of origin. Relations could get tense, but especially distant. There could be like a sudden rupture in connections with the family of origin, with one or several members of the family of origin. Like you could go no contact. Whether it's a conscious choice on one of your parts, right? Or it could be a question of circumstances, like, I don't know, a family member has to move abroad and you just don't talk to them as often, whatever. Something like that could happen. Second house is also the house of the speaking ability, the voice, the face. That's another thing. Watch out for sudden things, like potential sudden accidents during this time. I don't want to make anyone paranoid, but it's the face, so could show sudden ailments of the face or the throat. Aside from that, Rahu is technical stuff, right? So it's about everything that is STEM field, really. So science, AI, technology, state of the art, everything, right? So one way to look at this is you might be getting more technologically focused when it comes to your home environment as well. Again, it could literally show that you're going to spend more time with your family through technology. So, like more in Zoom chats rather than face to face. Another way to look at it is you could be gaining money, you could be having a lot of savings coming in through technology, right? So I don't know, if you have a YouTube channel, you could be making more money during this time. Or if you, I don't know, like it could be anything involving technology, honestly. And also Rahu in your case co-rules the first house, which is really favorable, actually. So this could also show, this is actually a very good placement for someone who is active on social media, especially if you actually show your face on social media and people hear your voice and all that, right? It will bring you potentially more recognition, more attention. And also, Rahu can show exotic everything, right? So it could show that people around this time might perceive your facial features to be more exotic. I know it sounds very weird and random, but that's one literal interpretation. Another way to look at it is your taste in food could become more exotic. Like suddenly you might find yourself eating a lot more foreign cuisine than usual, right? Aside from this, Rahu is aspecting the sixth house, the sixth house and the 10th house, both of which are connected to career. Sixth house is also connected to your health. Sixth house is also your job, more so than for people who are self-employed. It's the place of being an employee. It's also day-to-day routines. It's also pets and health, right? So, and also anatomically, the sixth house is particularly connected to the intestines. So you need to watch out again for potential health problems involving the digestive system during this time. Things that might happen suddenly, actually. So again, not to be neglected, but you might see that something might happen suddenly with your digestive system during this time. Like, I don't know, you might have a sudden indigestion or something, or sudden cramps, or something like that. Of course, a lot depends on what else is happening in an individual horoscope in order to see the likelihood of this happening, and whether you have other transits that are more favorable that would basically cancel this out, or whether you actually have more transits that would point in the same direction of you potentially developing something with your digestive system. Hopefully not, but it is one possibility. Again, with Rahu aspecting the house of the daily routines, this can also show that because these are malefics, though, you have Saturn in the first, you have Rahu in the second, this points more towards a forced focus on your day-to-day routine, in the sense that because of health issues, because of certain physical ailments, you might be pressured into rethinking the way you carry your day-to-day routines and your diet, right? So everything that potentially impacts your health is going to be may be revolutionized in some way during this time, right? And transformed, right? Also, pets. This is a good time to get exotic pets. You might actually feel drawn to get exotic pets during this time, like tropical fish, parrots, whatever. Depends on where you are from, of course. Like if you're from Costa Rica and like there are parrots flying around your ears, you might just get a pigeon or something. But anything that seems like exotic in terms of a pet might suddenly become more appealing now. And your day-to-day routine is suddenly going to become more impacted by technology or one way or another, whether it's actually coming from you or like you feel more of a need to rely more on technology, or you're suddenly going to be somehow forced by circumstance, right? Like, I don't know, your company wanted to use Siri or something, especially for your job, since, again, sixth house is also your job. It is your day-to-day routine, right? Irrespective of whether you are employed or self-employed. But for everyone, it also points to day-to-day routines, right? So somehow technology is going to impact day-to-day routines more. And you're also going to be more conscious of how your day-to-day routine, affects your health, your physical body, and your vitality. Aspect on the 10th house also shows that you are, again, very focused on career, but then it also shows that you're going to have some help when it comes to receiving aid through technology. So this is a great placement for anyone who, again, works in a STEM field or is making money from social media. Rahu is basically anything to do with recording, television, all this stuff. So YouTube, streaming, blah, 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 all this, everything that uses technology, the internet, is Rahu, basically. So for those of you who are already kind of making money out of this is a great time to see a boost in your income and, to just see that things are running in the right direction, especially with Jupiter, again, also looking at the 10th house, which gives like an extra blessing. And aside from that, you might be getting opportunities from foreigners in foreign countries a lot more when it comes to your career. And Jupiter now, let me look at the opposition as well, which is Ketu, right? So Ketu is sitting in Virgo in the 8th house. So for those of you who are married, or let's say even in a long-term relationship, you might find that, again, there's a disconnection from the husband, the spouse, your romantic partner's family of origin. Like there's suddenly more of a distance, more of a coldness there. However, I don't think it's going to be like a very negative thing. I don't think it's going to be like you're going to stop talking to your partner's family, because Jupiter is also looking at that house. So it's probably going to be just more like, naturally just everyone minds their own business. There's just going to be less of a activity. You might feel less interested in taking time with your partner's family of origin. And this can also show that the family of origin of the partner is going to be more spiritual during this time, more benevolent, more emotionally mature. This is also a good time to pursue any kind of spiritual activity for you, because your intuition is going to be very heightened, right? With Ketu sitting there in the 8th house. And because it's sitting in the 8th house, it's aspecting all of the water houses together with Jupiter. So this is actually a really good placement for intuition, for cultivating any kind of spiritual knowledge, learning more about astrology, tarot, any form of mystical school of anything, right? Also focusing on higher education to some extent as well. And faith is going to come to the forefront a lot more. Like you might find yourself drawn to having faith in your life like on a regular basis, especially for emotional comfort. And you might be especially drawn to organized religion during this time, because you also have Saturn in the 1st house. So you might find that the structure of an organized religion will give you the right mental peace and comfort. Jupiter sitting in the 4th house is going to show a very good connection with your mother. So, because the fourth house is the house of the mother, it's also the house of the homeland, of real estate, of vehicles. So this can be a really good time to redecorate your home. It could be a good time to actually find a better home, move into a better neighborhood, for instance. The connection to, like I said, to your mother and the mother's side of the family most likely is going to be really good. And this also shows that mentally and emotionally, for the most part, you're actually pretty protected. You will have like this inner sense of faith and knowing, especially for those, again, if you look at it from the ascendant perspective. Even from the moon, okay? But from the moon, you also have to deal with that Saturn thing going on. Anyway, it's still good. It's good, okay? And also when it comes to vehicles, again, you might be lucky to get a good deal when buying a car, for instance, or I don't know, you're lucky, somehow you're going to see some kind of an upgrade going on, basically, when it comes to your home or your vehicle. And the opportunity is there, of course, but it's not going to happen without some kind of effort. And Jupiter's ruling the second house even more so. So you could be using your savings in order to put a down payment on a house, for instance. And oh, 11th house as well. This is really good. This is really good. Very, very good in terms of like potentially gaining something when it comes to real estate or vehicles. And you might also, yeah, but I'm seeing more like an investment going on. Like you're going to be more pulled towards investing your money, the money you earn through your career, through your savings, into something like connected to vehicles, real estate, maybe also towards your mother, like I don't know, making your mother a gift of some kind. Um You also have to be careful though. You have to be really mindful of how you spend your money, because there is a possibility of you throwing money out the window as well. So being a little bit spendthrift, and there's also a risk of just making a potentially bad investment. So you need to be really careful with what you put your money in. Okay, this is the main thing I can say about, these are the main things I can say about the chart 1 phase. And now moving on to the chart 2 phase. This is from March 26th to June 8th. And this time Saturn is going to be in Pisces, Rahu is going to be in Pisces, therefore Ketu is going to be in Virgo. And in the first segment, Jupiter is going to stay in Taurus from March 26th to May 13th. And then it's going to move into Gemini from May 13th to June 8th. Now, obviously, the biggest focus is going to be the second house, because you will have Saturn and Rahu conjunct in the second house. So this mainly says that savings could take a hit during this time. So you have to be really careful with managing your money, even more so than in the chart 1 phase, because Rahu can show unexpected expenses. And Saturn is like, because it's a hard taskmaster and wants you to be thorough in everything, it could bring about, frustrations in replenishing your savings. It could bring about more expenses than usual, especially since Saturn also rules the 12th house in your case, which is kind of like the house of loss and like, I don't want to say a bottomless pit, but it kind of could have that sort of vibe, of like basically money seeping out without you even realizing sometimes, right? So you have to really watch your expenses during this time and try to avoid spending more than you need, especially avoid impulse shopping, because Rahu can bring you towards that direction. And there is a lot of focus, basically the same themes that I have mentioned in the chart 1 phase about the relationship to your family of origin and the partner's family of origin, they're going to stay basically. So there's still a lot of focus on that, in the sense that there could be something going on there, some distancing, some frustrations in the chart 1 phase until roughly May 13th. This can show as this can be less annoying because you also have Jupiter looking at the 8th house, so relationships to the in-laws is going to be good generally. But in the chart 2 phase, or the second part of the chart 2 phase, where Jupiter is moving into Gemini from May 13th to June 8th, there might be more frustrations when it comes to the connection to the family of origin. So potential distancing, relations could really run cold during this time, because both Saturn and Rahu are cold and detached and are going in the 2nd house. During this time, you might also find yourself drawn to some unusual diets. You might go suddenly minimalistic with your diet. You might experience a loss of appetite more because Saturn is diminishing everything that it touches. And also the 2nd house is also a house of self-esteem. So there could be more struggles in terms of managing your self-esteem during this time. There could be like more hits, let me put it like that. Again, especially since Saturn rules the 12th house and co-rules the 1st house, there's something going on there with self-esteem and self-confidence. You're going to have to really fight for it, really, in order to maintain your confidence, your happiness, basically. But like I said in the chart 1 phase, this is all part of the Saturn transit plan, basically to walk you through a restructuring of the self, right? So that you can reemerge into something that's more solid, more put together than before. For those of you who have already been, let's say, self-aware, going through therapy, working on yourselves, being very responsible with your life choices, then these transits are probably just going to be, minor hiccups, or for the most part, smooth sailing, because you would have already done most of the work, right? Saturn's 3rd aspect is falling onto Taurus in the 4th house. So this shows that a lot of effort, ironic, it's kind of like a continuity of the chart 1 phase, right? So it feels, if I look at it from the real estate perspective, like chart 1 phase could be like moving into a new home, and then the chart 2 phase is about renovating that home, for instance. That's just one of many ways to look at it. But what I was going to say is that there's a lot of conscious effort being put into the 4th house, right? Which could mean real estate, could mean vehicles, history, relationship with the mother, could mean the homeland, right? The culture of background, like your ethnic background, but especially from the mother side of the family. So there's a lot of like conscious effort going into the 4th house, which can show literally for some of you, you could be renovating your home, or you're really investing money, or you're really working. Maybe it's not about investing money, but you are like rolling up your sleeves and painting your home or something. So that could be happening, or you're really focused on getting a new car. So there's like a lot of effort being put into that. And then the relationship with the mother can also show that for some reason, this could be more challenging during this time. You might find yourself having to worry a little bit more about your mother for some reason, or the relationship could become a little bit more difficult, but not by a lot. Especially not by a lot until May 13th, when Jupiter is actually going through the 4th house. And now Saturn's aspect onto the 11th house with Jupiter. Well, Jupiter only in the 2nd phase, actually. So just looking at the Saturn aspect on the 11th house, this does show that you're going to be a little bit more frustrated during this time when it comes to the progress in your career. You might get a little bit more impatient. You might start to feel that things are not happening as fast as they should be happening. And this is because the 11th house is the 2nd from the 10th. It shows the gains from your career. So your frustrations are going to be around how much money you're making from your career, mainly. So you might be frustrated, you might want more to happen, but it's extremely important that you keep a very cautious approach during this time, especially until May 13th. And That's because Saturn is heavily impacting everything. Saturn is ruling the 12th house. This is not a time of like huge risky gestures, of massive investments, of quitting a job without a backup. No, 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 not a good time. So this is all about being cautious and hanging in there, basically. Now, in the second part of this, when Jupiter is going to move into Gemini from May 13th up until June 8th, you're also going to have Jupiter looking at the 11th house. Things are going to get better. They're going to get better in the sense that you're going to start to make more money. You're going to start to feel more progress in your career. Jupiter going through the 5th house is a great placement as well. So from May 13th, when Jupiter is going to enter the 5th house, this is a great placement for self-expression, for being authentic, and it's also great for education. So from the 5th house, Jupiter is going to be aspecting the 9th house as well, and it's also going to be aspecting the 1st house. So this is a great time for education of any form, whether it's self-education, whether it's formal education. It's a great time to get into a college program, university program of any kind, especially higher education, so like master's degree and above, because 5th and 9th houses are very much connected to higher education. Aside from this, the 5th house is the house of speculative gain. So if you have any plans of like playing the lottery or anything, this is the time to do it. I'm not trying to tell you to waste your money too much, but if it's not a huge expense, it's a worthwhile risk during this time. Again, a lot will depend on individual transits as well. So if you have other things that will point towards luck being on your side, you might actually, win some things, like raffles, some competitions, have a sudden windfall. This is also a great time. So from May 13th to June 8th and forward a little bit, because it's going to stay in Gemini for a while. This is a great time to invest, to learn about investments, to look towards things to invest your money in. This, because the 5th house is the house of speculative gains and Jupiter is the great benefic, right? So, yeah. Aside from that, relationships with children, maybe your children or children in general, are going to be really good during this time. You might also have a very good time if you are a teacher of any kind, if you are in a teaching position, or if you're interested in publishing, creative writing, anything that's kind of connected to Jupiter. To some extent, also traveling as well. Traveling is going to go smoothly for you during this time for the most part, because again, Jupiter's impacting the 5th and the 9th houses, both of which are connected to traveling, especially traveling for fun as opposed to business. And yeah, things are going to go well if you travel during this time. Last but not least, this is a great time for romance, because Jupiter going through the 5th house, this is a time of falling in love, to be honest, okay? I'm not going to say, of course, a lot, again, depends on individual horoscopes, but just looking at it from the basic perspective, it's definitely a good time to develop some romantic interests, right? 5th house is the house of romance, of courtship, and even though 5th house does not really say anything about the long-term potential, again, that would have to be looked at from more personal configurations and individual horoscopes. But for the most part, Jupiter going through the 5th house shows that there might be opportunities coming in romantically. Now, again, to which extent they might develop into something serious, that has to be seen from other parts. And you're also just going to enjoy learning during this time, right? Because 5th house is all about what you enjoy. So Jupiter going through the 5th house shows that you're going to be enjoying education. You're going to be enjoying reading more, maybe. There is also a potential tendency to kind of spread yourself thin because Jupiter is going in Gemini. So you might have, like, your mind might be all over the place, right? You're going to be getting ideas pulling you in different directions. If you are at that point where you want to decide on a college degree, you might have a hard time deciding between multiple interests, right? Either way, it is a good time to explore any kind of educational experiences and, study programs and all that. You're going to be lucky in this regard. So, yeah. The Ketu part is going to stay pretty much the same as I have described it in the chart 1 phase. And on top of that, this can also be, let's say, slightly better. Well, when Jupiter is in Taurus, basically. But no, I'm not going to say that, because I was going to say it's a good time to take out a loan, but honestly, a lot will depend on individual horoscopes, because the transits here are a little bit mixed. So it's like you have both positive and negative going on. Anyway, Jupiter in the second phase from May 13th onward, going into Gemini, looking at your ascendant, and also even on your moon, but let me stick to the ascendant for now. This is going to be like a clearing out of a lot of worries, a lot of negativity, also potentially a lot of health issues, right? So you're going to get a break after some serious Saturn action going on the ascendant. And this can also show generally having a more optimistic outlook on life and being more joyful, more benevolent, more optimistic. And also it shows people will tend to have a more favorable impression of you based on your ascendant, right? So people are more readily gonna be warmer towards you, gonna have a generally good opinion of you and ready to give you the benefit of the doubt. And yeah, this is pretty much what I could say about, well, one more thing I could say is, because there's Jupiter's aspect on the 9th house, the relationship with the father is generally going to be good, or with father figures in general. Also, relationships with guru. So you might even find a guru during this time. And relationships with people of foreign cultures are going to be pretty good. And you might be really drawn to like studying religions. Really. I would say both in the chart, both when Jupiter is in Taurus and when it's in Gemini, you might be drawn to faith, religion, and so on and so forth, right? But in the second part, when Jupiter is going into Gemini, you might become more bookishly inclined to study something. And yeah, and travel more as well. Okay, the chart 3 phase, this is from June 8th to December 31st, so the end of the year. Saturn is going to be in Pisces, Rahu is going to be in Aquarius, therefore Ketu is going to be in Leo. Jupiter is going to stay in Gemini from June 8th to October 13th, after which it's going to move into Cancer until December 31st. The main impact for you here, of course, is Rahu moving into your first house. So Rahu moving into your first house is going to make you a lot more self-focused. So it's going to make you suddenly become more realistic. Sorry, not realistic, but in a way, yeah, even more realistic. But more materialistic. That's the main thing, right? So you're going to have more materialism going on. You're going to be way more driven to succeed in the material world, to gain more attention, to gain more, respect, more appreciation, more visibility. And this is certainly going to be a time when you're going to have a lot of opportunities to get that, especially since in your case, Rahu co-rules the ascendant, right? So you have the Lord of the first house transiting the first house. That's a good one in terms of getting visibility, getting more attention. So for anyone, again, who has like a social media following or has any kind of a profession where their image is very important, right? How they present themselves is very important. You're going to see more of a positive reaction to you, and it's maybe going to get you more attention, more money, more respect, etc., or at least more attention. I cannot actually say much about respect, although first house lord going through the first is a good one, but a lot has to be seen from the other parts of the horoscope. Aside from that, Rahu is also aspecting the 5th, the 9th houses. So there's going to be a lot of focus on the self-expression, on being your authentic self. So you're going to be more likely to not care about other people's opinions. You're going to be more likely to become a little bit of a rebel, right? So if up until this point you felt maybe shy, or especially with those Saturn transits, you may have gone through a phase when you've really, doubted yourself at times and have had to really fight for your confidence. During this time, it's going to be more like a wild thing sort of experience, right? You're going to feel emboldened and ready to take on the world and to just be yourself and, just be unapologetic, basically. So this can bring some potential negativity as well. Now, Rahu is fundamentally a malefic energy. So one of the things that I have said in other videos, maybe you have watched them, is that when Rahu is in the first house natally, this does tend to be an aspect that can make people quite narcissistic at times, but it depends a lot on what else is going on, right? So in the sense that, the life trajectory becomes all about me, standing at the forefront, getting comfortable in some ways with getting attention, with standing out of a crowd, right? Overcoming shyness and all that. And so some of that is also going to be manifesting through this transit. And you're going to become bolder, and you're just going to naturally see that you're going to get more attention, even maybe without trying. Like, you might feel like you're not specifically doing anything to get more attention, and yet people will start to notice you more. And also, this can also make people see you as an unconventional individual, even more so than usual, because you probably already had some of that going on with Ascendant in Aquarius. And people can start to see you more unconventional, more independent, more, dances to the beat of your own drum sort of character. Depending on what you want to do in life and how you're operating, that could be a good thing, that could be a bad thing, Right. Aside from that, aspects on the 5th, on the 9th houses, there can be a bit of a separation of relationships between you and your children, if you have children. And you might also suddenly have an interest in children, by the way, especially in the first part from June 8th to October 13th, when Jupiter is also in the 5th house itself. You might suddenly develop an interest in having children, spending time with children, maybe teaching children. But it's also a time of really focusing on expressing your repressed sides, right? Your inner child, for lack of a better way to put it. And it's basically Rahu's going to be superimposed on Jupiter. But since Jupiter is there, Rahu is not going to go too crazy, right? Because Jupiter basically cancels out the Rahu negative aspects. So it's still gonna be a good time to look into investments, for instance. It's still gonna be a good time to study and focus on education. You might also get more opportunities, again, through foreigners, foreign places. Like, for instance, you could be applying to a university abroad during this time. You might find it easier to get in. This can also show using technology to educate yourself, so just learning online. That's another way to look at it. And then you're also going to find it easier to express yourself creatively with your physical body. Again, depending on what is going on in the individual horoscope, this could mean dancing, this could be dramatic arts, all kinds of things, right? This would be, again, a great placement for an actor as well. Jupiter and Rahu aspecting the 5th house, you might get more opportunities during this time. So, aside from this, Rahu looking at the 9th house, very strong interest in travel, because Jupiter is looking at the 9th house as well. So, especially in the first phase when Jupiter's in Gemini, you're probably gonna feel quite a lot of wanderlust, like wanting to explore new places, travel, meet new people maybe as well, but especially explore foreign countries, foreign places. The situation on the 2nd house is still going to be pretty serious, but it's going to get a little bit better in the sense that you're still going to have to, watch your savings and your expenses, because Saturn going through the 2nd house is still going to really make you pinch a penny till it screams, because it just shows there most likely aren't going to be like huge windfalls coming in. And mostly it's going to be up to you to manage your finances. And it's like a situation where the harder you work, the more money you're going to save, basically, with Saturn going through there. And sometimes it's going to seem tough, like it's going to be frustrating. You might feel like you're not really able to save much, or you're not able to save as much money as you would like to. In the second phase, though, when Jupiter goes into Cancer from October 13th, it's going to get a little bit better. You're going to find more money coming in easily because of the influence of Jupiter on the second house. And also on the 10th house. So also it's going to be easy to find a job, a lot easier, when Jupiter is going to move into Cancer. Let's not also forget that Jupiter is exalted in Cancer, so it's bringing in a lot of opportunities, a lot of positive results. You would still have to check individual horoscopes because, of course, there will be potentially other influences that could override this. They could be more negative in a way. I don't think any transit, though, could be strong enough to completely like obliterate the positive aspects of Jupiter in Cancer in the in the 6th house, though. Anyway, Jupiter going through Cancer in your 6th house will definitely improve any kind of health issues that you have had going on. And it will bring a lot of positivity through employment. Somehow your day-to-day routine is suddenly going to become more pleasant for you. And potential employment, like I said, especially coming from faraway places, faraway countries, foreigners offering you jobs, stuff like that. And Jupiter is also looking at the 10th house, like I said. So during this phase, it's going to be way easier to find job opportunities overall. And even for those of you who are self-employed, you're going to see that you're going to find more progress in your career more easily. Because, Jupiter is looking at the 10th house. Also, I should have mentioned this before, but I'm going to mention it right now. When Jupiter is in Gemini, looking at the 11th house, this is also a good time to find long-term potential, not romantic partners, long-term potential friends, right? You might find more opportunities for socializing, but while Saturn is also looking at the 11th house, you might also find more of a, how should I put it? Again, Saturn is still going to be scrutinizing everything that it touches, right? So when Saturn is looking at the 11th house, this can also show that some friendships might run cold, or you might find yourself wanting to distance yourself from some friends because you might start to question whether they are, long-term friends or good time friends. You know what I mean? Because Saturn only wants the long-term friends. Saturn only wants things that are solid, dependable, genuine, authentic, like, how should I put it, a ride or die sort of relationship that's going to stand the test of Saturn, basically, right? And also right now, Saturn is still going to go through the 2nd, looking at the 8th house. There still might be some tensions going on or some coldness in the relationship with your family of origin and your in-laws or the family of your long-term romantic partner. But it's going to be a little bit better with your family of origin, especially when Jupiter is moving into Cancer because of Jupiter's aspect on the 2nd house. And aside from this, Ketu will be going into your 7th house. Now, Ketu tends to kind of show a lack of interest towards anything that it touches, which, if you're single, you may not really feel the effects of this in any particular way. It's just that if you're single, you're just gonna find yourself, not thinking about relationships as much. You're maybe just happy doing your own thing, right? Because your main focus is gonna be the Rahu, like pulling you towards self-development, basically. But for those of you who are in relationships, there might be potential problems in the sense that 7th house is the long-term partner. 7th house is partnerships in general. 7th house is also the house of sexuality. In Vedic astrology, it's even more so the house of sexuality, especially within the marriage, well, within any kind of relationship, actually, more than the 8th house, right? So Ketu going through the 7th house could show you're just not going to be interested in these areas as much, right? So if you're in a relationship, you might be losing interest in intimacy. You might also find yourself, worst case scenario, disinterested in your romantic partner maybe, or just not interested as much in spending time with your partner, which obviously can lead to problems, arguments, misunderstanding. So if you find yourself having that tendency, you have to keep that stuff under control. Of course, you are capable of controlling yourself and being conscious and deciding whether you want to maintain the relationship or not. But if you want to maintain the relationship, you need to watch your behavior and make sure that your partner doesn't feel like, they're being taken for granted or completely ignored. Since Ketu is also ruling the 10th house, co-ruling the 10th house in your situation, going into the 7th house, this is in some ways a good thing, in some ways not such a good thing, but a lot, again, depends on individual horoscope configurations. In some ways, it shows, again, a potential rise in the career trajectory, right? Especially for those of you who are involved in Scorpio or Ketu related professions. So psychology, research, any career that involves some level of secrecy or dealing with sensitive information, dealing with, working for the government, working behind the scenes somewhere, things that have to deal with the occult in any way, or things that are sort of mystical and hidden from the world that are maybe a little bit taboo. Any person who works in something involving crisis situations, right? Working with small electronics, especially cabling, is ruled by Ketu as well. And any kind of intuitive kind of connection profession, right? So doing Reiki, doing energy work, all kinds of things like that, right? Being a mystic. So if you are in one of these categories, or you want to branch out into one of these categories, then you're going to find an easy way to do it, right? You're going to find some things aligning for you in such a way that you will see progress in this area. If you are not in these areas, it may not affect you. Again, this is the part where you would have to look at what's going on in the individual horoscope, because it may not affect you at all. Or if you are in an area that is not at all connected to these things, you might just experience a lot of frustration and might feel like you just want to change career trajectories, basically. But another way to look at it is 10th house Lord going into the 7th house is that you might start to have arguments with your partner because of your job, because of your career. And not so much arguments, but because of Ketu going in there, right? If you have Mars aspect in the 7th house, there might also be arguments and fights and whatever. Or the 6th house Lord going into the 7th house, looking at the 7th house, then you might actually see arguments. With Ketu, there can just be a kind of disinterest, like I said, right? And most likely the cause of that disinterest is going to be you focusing more on your own development professionally and, self-development, basically. So that might lead into dissatisfaction within your relationship. Worst case scenario, it could even bring the dissolution of a relationship because of your career in some way. And yeah, this is pretty much what I can see. Let me think if there's anything else that I have missed. Another thing that I can add, and this is going to be true for, Jupiter going through the 4th house, not 4th house, Cancer. I was thinking about the 4th sign. So Jupiter going through the sign of Cancer, looking at the 12th house. This can mean that if you are going to lose a job during this time, you might find yourself, with a nice severance package, right? A nice compensation given to you by the previous place of employment. This can also show not only that it's a good time to travel, especially far away places, delving into religion. So 12th house is places of isolation, places of worship, it's faraway lands. So if you've had any fantasies about, I don't know, traveling to a different continent, you're going to be favored to do so during this transit. And if you are also planning to do something like a spiritual retreat or a pilgrimage or anything, again, very favored during this time. You might actually feel more drawn towards these kinds of activities during this transit. Yeah, and dealing with anything involving import export, especially, yeah, so again, trading with foreigners is going to be favored during this time. Okay, this is pretty much what I can tell you based on the chart 3 phase. So this has been pretty much the entire year covered. Once again, I hope that you listen to all of this, and I hope you make the most of it. And feel free to come back to this video as the year progresses, and share your experiences in the comment section would help a lot, like which parts resonated, which parts didn't resonate, if there are any nuances that you think I have missed. And of course, feel free to share more of your individual placements when you talk about what you have experienced, because it would help the research a lot. So yeah, thank you very much for listening, and I hope you have a really nice rest of 2025. Bye.